Okay, so last lesson we talked about safe contracts and a few of the most important details you'll see in them, things like discounts and valuation caps. Shortly, we're going to start talking about two more key elements of these early stage deals, the pre-money and post-money valuation. But before we do that, there's one important thing you got to understand first, and that's how dilution works. So let's take a super quick detour and talk about dilution for a second. All right, so one thing that we find a lot of early stage founders don't necessarily understand is that when you raise a round of financing and give a percentage of your company to an investor, you're not handing that investor a bunch of shares that already existed beforehand. Instead, what you're doing is magically creating a whole new batch of shares and handing over those shares to the investor. This is how dilution works. All the current shareholders keep the same number of shares that they already have, but since you've now added a bunch of new shares into the picture, your personal shares now represent a smaller percentage of the whole pie. Okay, so I know that was probably a little hairy, so to make it crystal clear, let's see an example. Say you have a business where you own 100% of the company. So just for simplicity, we'll say that your company has 8 million shares in total, and you own 100% of those shares. But now you're raising your Series A. You have one investor. She's a nice lady. Her name is Jennifer. Jennifer gives you some money, and in exchange, you agree to give her 20% of the company. But remember, that 20% is not coming out of the 8 million shares that already exist. Instead, you're going to magically create a bunch of new shares and give them to Jennifer so that she ultimately has 20% of the new total. So to say that again, you're going to keep the same number of shares personally, but your percentage is going to be diluted from 100% down to 80. Now we can skip the whole math equation of it, but ultimately here's how it's all going to shake out. You keep your 8 million shares. That doesn't change. You then create 2 million new shares and give them to Jennifer. This means your company now has 10 million shares in total, with Jennifer owning 20% and you owning 80%. And this is what dilution means. Before Jennifer showed up, you owned 100% of the company. But now that she's come in as an investor, you still own the same number of shares that you had before, but your percentage of the total shares has been diluted down to 80%. Easy enough, right? So understanding this is the key to understanding how pre-money and post-money valuations work, which is what we're going to talk about in our next lesson. So when you're ready, hit the button down below and let's get into it.